What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today, for the very first time ever, we've got a Keyforge prize deck that we can have a little bit of a look about. The very first ever Grand Championships happened in Germany this weekend, and congratulations to Shabab Sarabi, apologies for the pronunciation, who went and won the very first ever prize deck. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. If you win a Grand Championship, you get a unique deck. Yes, I know it's Keyforge and every deck is unique, blah, blah, blah. The point is, this one is, and you can see from the images, it is a very unique thing. It's got a different border to your average deck. It is Philippe Callaway Grand Champion, and I am led to believe, the lovely Rachel Trimble has been feeding me information about this, I am led to believe that they will all have Grand Champion in the name, given that you win them by winning a Grand Championship. That sounds kind of cool. And this is pretty gosh darned awesome. Now, there is supposed to be one Grand Championship per country. Some have been revealed in terms of locations and dates. Some, the UK, haven't yet, unfortunately. I'm very much hoping I'll be at the one in the UK, but we can never really know until it actually comes around and happens. So the question is this deck any good? And the answer is, it's not actually bad. It is a Dis Logos Sanctum deck, and it's got an 82 SAS and a 53 AERC, which is to say good, not great. Above average, but not phenomenal. The kind of deck you would happily take to a chain-bound tournament, try and get some chains on it, but the kind of deck you probably wouldn't be taking to a Vault Tour. It's got some armor, it's got some cheeky amber generation, it's got a little bit of disruption. It is a pretty good deck. So we're going to have a quick run through, see what's in it. We're not going to go quite as in-depth as we usually would, because this isn't some phenomenal deck that went and won a Vault Tour, but it's the first ever prize deck, so it is definitely interesting enough to have a gander at. So starting off with this, we've got a copy of Binding Irons. Binding Irons is great. Gives your opponent free chains, slows them down. We've got a copy of Misery Exploit, which gains you an amber for each damaged enemy creature. So if you can spread a bit of damage around with this deck, either using other cards or by fighting, you can get yourself some of that cheeky amber generation I mentioned earlier. Not finished with you, lets you shuffle any number of creatures from your discard pile into your deck. Really nice for reusing creatures. Poltergeist is great as a little bit of artifact control. Use an artifact controlled by any player as if it were yours. Destroy that artifact. Red Hot Armor. Each enemy creature with armor loses it all until the end of the turn and is dealt 1 point of damage for each point of armor it lost in that way. And this is going to be kind of ironic, of course, because we've got a fair bit of armor when we get to Sanctum in a moment. Anguish is alright to stop your opponent forging. It's not amazing, but for each damage on Anguish, your opponent's keys cost 1 more amber. It's not terrible. Charette is far better. It captures free amber. I'm not being mean to Anguish. I'm just saying it's a 6-power creature with no elusive. Your opponent will take it down sooner rather than later. Speaking of generating amber in a moderately cheeky way, how about Dust Imp? 2 of them in there. When destroyed, you gain a couple of amber. Well, that's quite nice. Old Yerk comes along. When you play it, you discard 2 cards from your hand. Now, this can be good. You essentially free up your hand so you draw more cards at the end of your turn. But by the same token, it can also force you to make discards which you don't want to. There is an Ember Imp. It's got elusive, it's a 2-power creature, and after a creature reaps, stun it. It is one of the many cards from Age of Ascension, which is basically there to make sure that your opponent is not going to be reaping. And Soul Keeper, the soul upgrade in your Dis suite. Soul Keeper here, it gives a creature destroy the most powerful enemy creature. So if your opponent wants to take it down, they're going to essentially have to give up their most powerful creature to do it. That ain't easy. Moving into logos, we've got that Binate Rupture card everyone seems to like so much. It is an alpha card. It must be the first thing you do on your doing part of the turn. And each player gains amber equal to the amber in their pool. That's nice, ladies and gentlemen. Just so long as you're ahead in the game. Otherwise, not so good. Entropic Swirl. It's an action card. Play, choose a creature. For each trait it has, deal 2 damage and gain 1 amber. So sometimes dealing 4 damage, getting 2 amber, that's what you're usually going to get. That ain't bad. Lab Work lets you archive a card, which is kind of cool. And there is some more archive we're going to see as we go through. Poke is not a great card. Gives you an amber bonus, which we like. But you deal 1 damage to a creature. If it destroys it, you draw a card. It's not phenomenal. Standardized Testing. You destroy each creature with the lowest power and each creature with the highest power. This can be a board wipe, but again, it really depends on what's actually on the board. This could be really, really good or really, really bad. Memory Chip is an artifact. After you choose logo as your active house, archive a card. Yeah, you know that archive that I mentioned? This. Be careful though, because this is a permanent skill. That is to say, once you've played it, you have to archive a card when you choose logos, even if you don't want to. Director of ZYX, free power creature with elusive at the start of your turn. Archive the top card of your deck. This is random archiving. There is a very good chance you're going to archive something from, let's say, the wrong house. Often you'll want to build up an archive of 1 house so that you can have loads of disc stuff in your archive and then have a nuts disc turn. Director of ZYX can make it go wrong by archiving 1 Sanctum card, and then it's there clogging up your hand in the future when you pick up your archive. File of the Researcher. After a creature is placed adjacent to her, you draw a card. That's actually kind of cool. Should just get you 2 cards at some point during the game. That ain't bad. Hexbion. When it's destroyed, you archive Hexbion and the top card of your deck. Again, that is random archiving. Nice, but could backfire. And there's 2 Titan Librarian. At the end of your turn, if it is not on a flank, you archive a card. Now, you can get around this by making sure you don't have any cards in your hand to archive. But by the same token, you archive the cards, you then draw 2 more cards at the end of your turn, and you can always just pick them up out of your archive at the beginning of your next turn. I like this. ZYX Researcher, when you play it, you archive the top card of your deck or the top card of your discard pile. And again, could backfire. Now, you know what the top card of your discard pile is. You do not know what the top card of your deck is. So it's not quite as random as it could be. Lots and lots of archiving. Moving into Sanctum, we've got Blinding Light. You choose a house and you stun each creature of that house. That can be kind of fun to slow your opponent down. And it's got the card we always want to see when we open a Sanctum deck, Doorstep to Heaven. Each player with 6 or more amber is reduced to 5. That could be absolutely huge. If your opponent's about to forge a key, this is a great card. Smite, you ready and fight with a friendly creature and deal 2 damage to the attacked creature's neighbours. It's a decent fighting card. Not amazing, but it's alright. Gormavorm is another really good card to take down artifacts. Gormavorm gives you an Omni ability whereby you sacrifice it and destroy an artifact. When you combine this with Poltergeist, that really does give you a great couple of options for getting rid of your opponent's artifacts. Hadrof's Wall, each friendly flank creature gets +2 power. Cool. That's actually going to really help. It's going to make some of your creatures a bit beefier. Abond the Armorsmith gives each other friendly creature +1 armor and has an action that lets you do it again, which is quite cool. Obey the Grim, when you play it, you get to capture 3 amber. And of course, that's the same as Charette, but it's actually better than Charette because it's got a skill whereby when you reap, you discard an amber from it. Remembering, of course, that generally speaking, your opponent will just destroy the creature that captured the amber in order to get the amber back. Obeyed the Grim will stop them doing so. Shell the Safeguard has got Deploy and Taunt, so you put it anywhere you like in your battle line, and then your opponent cannot attack the neighbours, they have to attack Shell. Speaking of armour, Maruk the Marked. Now this is a great combo with Abon the Armorsmith. After it prevents damage with armour, you capture 1 amber for each damage that has just been prevented. So use Abon to give it more armour, and then sit there and rock. It's kind of fun, ladies and gentlemen. Prince Derek Unifier, when you play it, you gain 3 amber if you control creatures from 3 different houses. Not always the easiest thing to pull off, but again, not unlike the Misery Exploit and Dust Imp we looked at, it's a nice way of just getting a bit of cheeky extra amber. And then Sanctum Guardian. Sanctum Guardian is a lovely creature, 6 power, 1 armor, and taunt. When you fight or reap, you swap it with another friendly creature in your battle line. And just like Shell the Safeguard, it's got taunt, and you can essentially put it where you like. Although Shell has Deploy, this you have to fight or reap to do it. But it basically means that between the two of them, you can protect whichever creatures you like, because you've got taunt. So you put it down next to 2 creatures you don't want to be fought, and they ain't going to be fought. And then I love that there is a Dis Ambassador in here. Ambassadors are some of the chase cards we're looking at for decks in Age of Ascension, and there's one in here. Basically, Dis Ambassador is a 1 power creature with elusive. When you fight or reap, you may play or use a Dis card this turn. Nice that they chucked that in. This might just be a random deck. I would imagine it's not. My guess, and this is nothing more than a guess, I think putting something like Dis Ambassador in here is a really nice, hey, we chucked you a really rare card. Similarly, I don't think they would want to give you a particularly terrible or particularly powerful deck. I think giving you an above average deck with a chase card in that isn't phenomenal is the perfect prize deck. The last thing we need is somebody winning a grand championship and then using their prize deck to take down multiple tournaments. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. I would be pretty happy to win this deck. Partly the deck's fun, partly I'd have won a grand championship, and partly the second you put a different border on that and you give the little grand championship symbol, I want that deck more than any deck in the world. But I don't want to buy it. I gotta win it, ladies and gentlemen. Gotta win it. But I'd like to know what you think about this deck and about the idea of prize decks in general. So go nuts, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and follow me on Twitter at the Wossy, where we talk about a whole bunch of games like Keyforge and whatever other games take our fancy. If you want to support the channel, patreon.com/PTCG Radio is the place to do it. I've been told I don't push that enough. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.